everyone. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. So this presentation is called Twitter, the most misunderstood social network. And just before I give you a run through of what I'm going to talk about over the next 10 minutes, just by show of hands, how many of you use Twitter for your business already? Okay, good. That's a decent amount. So first up, we're going to look at why Twitter is so misunderstood. And there are two main reasons for this: perception and context. Then we're going to look at why Twitter is the most valuable social network in your social media arsenal. And finally, I'm going to look forward and see where Twitter's heading in 2016. Right, let's get started. Perception. Twitter's got an image problem. People tend to think that Twitter's all about big brands and celebrities and that users only want to hear from them. And yes, there are a lot of brands and celebrities on Twitter, but this overlooks the fact that the majority of Twitter users are normal consumers that are going to be valuable to your business. The genesis of this misconception comes from when Twitter first started, when it was mainly used by people so they could get an insight, a sneak peek into the lives of their favorite celebrity. That's how Twitter first gained traction. But 10 years on, it's become so much more than that. It's now a hub on people's phone where they connect with their friends, their family, celebrities, businesses, both big and small, and consume breaking news in a way that no other social network can replicate. So every social network goes through this problem of perception. It's a make or break point where they either die or grow exponentially and become more mass appeal to businesses because of that growth. So Facebook broke through this barrier a number of years ago. And now if you ask any social media marketer, they'll say that for 9 out of 10 businesses, if you're consumer facing, you'll find your audience on Facebook. But can we say the same thing about Twitter? Again, by show of hands, who thinks we can say the same thing? I see, that's interesting. Okay, so there's about 4 of you who are right. Of course we can say the same thing. But because they're battling with this issue of perception, some people still might not believe you. And so now I want to talk about context. We hear in online marketing all the time that content is king. But as Gary Vaynerchuk so rightly said, if content is king, then context is God. You see, the main reason why Twitter is so misunderstood is because businesses get the context wrong. Simply put, they don't understand the nuances of the platform and how Twitter works. So apart from the more obvious issue that Twitter's got more confusing jargon than any other social network, algorithmically speaking, so how Twitter fundamentally works, it's a completely different beast to Facebook, and they couldn't be further apart right now. So for example, let's take a look at the Facebook news feed and how it works. Your business posts a status update. Facebook shows this update to a small group of people who like your page. If it receives engagement, Facebook shows it to a slightly larger group of people who like your page. And so on, until people either stop engaging or you post fresher content. If, however, your post falls flat and no one engages, it doesn't get shown to any larger groups, it goes into Facebook limbo and the post is dead. So the news feed of a user on Facebook is a carefully curated collection of status updates, mainly from their friends, but also businesses, which Facebook thinks that user is going to enjoy the most and are most likely to engage with, therefore maximizing the amount of time that user spends on Facebook. The Twitter timeline, on the other hand, is a continually updated live stream of tweets from the people that you follow. And tweets only have a lifespan of 24 minutes. So if your followers aren't on Twitter at the same time as when you post a tweet, give or take those 24 minutes, they're likely to miss it. And consequently, this affects your posting frequency. And it's posting frequency that sits within context that's the most misunderstood element of Twitter. You should be tweeting 10 or more times per day. And it's even more effective to repeat your tweets. So these issues of perception and context can be overcome with education. And when you really get down to it, Twitter, despite these issues, is still the most valuable social network in your social media arsenal. And it's the most valuable for three main reasons. Number one, it's not pay to play yet. So social media provides marketers with the long sought after holy grail, that is access to the thoughts of the consumer and the ability to target content and advertisements to consumers based on interests, location, and a wide range of other variables. But many businesses just starting out on social media face the problem of not having an audience yet. So for the majority, the way out seems to be to pay for ads on Facebook to build an audience, because Facebook organic reach has completely diminished in recent years. On Twitter though, you can build an audience without directly paying for it through ads. All it requires is an investment of your time. Number two, there's a target audience to suit almost any business. There's basically no group of people you can't find on Twitter. And because you don't need to know people to connect, all of them are accessible and waiting for you to join into conversation. If we look at a demographic breakdown of Twitter users in the UK, 49% are between 18 and 34, and a further 30% are between 35 and 54. So this shows that Twitter is now at a stage of maturity where it gives opportunities to reach all age groups. And because of this wide demographic spread, I've seen success for real micro niches, such as data centers. Even far-reaching taboo topics like death and bereavement resonate on Twitter to the point where people talk openly about it and actively engage with the relevant organizations. But the key to engagement on Twitter is to join in conversations, putting you and your business out there. And so this segues nicely into the third reason. And sounds a bit weird, but you can talk to strangers. On Twitter, it's totally legitimate to connect with people you've never met or talked to, and it's not seen as creepy or weird. Twitter offers the fastest way to build a relevant audience of followers for your business and the content you're sharing. You have an opportunity to interact and engage with the right people for your business, even if they don't follow you back. This is something you can't do on Facebook or LinkedIn, for example. And so Twitter excels as an audience building tool because when you're really doing a good job interacting and building relationships on Twitter, then people will be interested eventually in the content that you're sharing that links them back to your website and your business. And so finally, I just want to look at where Twitter's heading in 2016. There's going to be massive changes at Twitter. We've already heard rumors about the increase in character count, so-called Project Beyond 140, where Twitter's looking to increase this character limit from 140 characters all the way to 10,000. If they do this, this is going to completely change the dynamic of the network. As well as that, in 2016, we can hope for a more robust advertising platform as the push from Wall Street only gets stronger and as the push from Wall Street continues to get stronger and Twitter have to then monetize more because they've got shareholders now, they've got people like that. But Twitter's real big focus for this year is going to be showing businesses the value of the platform for customer service, because a significant number of people turn to Twitter for their customer service queries as it's quick and it's simple. So Twitter worked to better facilitate this last year by removing character counts in direct messages and introducing quote tweets, which allowed people to keep track of relevant conversations. But still, only 2% of businesses use social media for customer service, let alone Twitter. And finally, Twitter is experimenting with an emoji reaction tool, very similar to Facebook's tool that they announced today that they're going to be pushing out globally over the next couple of weeks. But it's going to allow users to replace the heart for a like on a tweet with one of 36 emojis to be made available. And so there it is. Twitter demystified and the opportunities explained. I hope you'll all be seeing Twitter in a new light and building it into your social media strategy in 2016. Let's take some questions.
So you were talking about emojis, and there was a big campaign that was a kind of charity campaign, so I don't know whether Miles or Paul want to comment on this as well, where if you were tweeting, I think it was WWF that did it, if you were tweeting a particular character emoji, a sort of an animal emoji, you could donate something towards a particular cause. Do you think that Twitter can be used in this kind of capacity for the greater good as well as just getting a message out there advertising?
Yes, definitely. You know, as Miles was saying, how the internet has kind of brought communities together globally for the greater good, basically. So I definitely think there is a whole side of Twitter that charities can use to, you know, help with fundraising appeals and increase donations and things like that. Definitely.
Do you think increasing the character count is a good move for Twitter?
Yeah, you see. See, that's a really good question because, it's going to change the dynamic, like I said earlier, completely, because it's going to look more a bit like Medium. And so I don't know, see, to me, Twitter was all about short messages in the moment, and that's what it's really been about. You know, whether you're at live events or whether it's breaking news, that's what Twitter is. Like, that's what people use it for. And so if suddenly I can see a rant of 10,000 characters from someone that didn't like their breakfast at Starbucks, you know, you keep that for Facebook or Instagram, but yeah, I think they will have real mixed messages depending on how you use it. So I think they've got to change, basically, because, you know, their share price is down, they had some executives leave, and so when Jack Dorsey was brought back in as CEO, he's really shaking them up to push more product out there and grow the user base. So I think the more changes, the better in this respect.
Do you think the use of emojis also helps them to create sentiment analysis?
Yes.
Suddenly, if you're not just liking something, you're showing an emotion.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that they'll offer in their Twitter analytics, or do you think that will become part of the premium service? Because sentiment analysis is something that's always been seen as quite a ropey, inaccurate way of measuring social media kind of interaction with third-party tools. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens with the sentiment analytics.
Yeah. Again, I think what Twitter can really do is, because there are so many great third-party analytics tools, what they really need to do is to really grow as a platform, they should limit their API use and internalize all those great tools and build them for themselves, because they've already got all the data. And so it would make Twitter analytics so much more effective, as you said, with, you know, sentiment analysis. I know you can, in advanced search in Twitter, you can actually search for tweets based on a positive or negative. So I think they'll try and bring that into their analytics, and that's just going to be more effective for businesses as a social listening tool.
You mentioned 2% of businesses using social media for customer service. Yeah. Why do you think that is still?
That's a good question. So I think generally social media's had a slow uptake because it's all started from a personal side. So you were all on Facebook just to connect with your friends, and then, you know, a number of years ago, people thought, oh, you can't really ignore 1 billion users for my business. Even 300 million for Twitter is still a very large sum of people. So, yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one, Simon, basically, and talk about it with me afterwards. Yeah.
I think a lot of it's about tooling. There's just not as much tooling as there is for other platforms like email and specific custom-built stuff. So for a company to, you know, facilitate that, any company that's larger than one support member, it's going to get confusing to be dealing with multiple people from potentially multiple different support.
What was your name, sorry? Joe. Great answer. Joe literally said it perfectly. That's another thing from a number of people perspective. Then people just don't have the time or the resources to do that.
Or the character count.
Or the character count. I mean, but that's why you take...
Question, how do I do this in Windows? And you've got to go over 4 tweets.
Yeah. But that's then why you direct people back to direct messages, and they've got an unlimited character count now. So they work to better facilitate that.
But if you look at Vodafone's customer support feed, or in any large customer support feed, you'll see a lot of it's basically pure negative comments coming in. Is that like, I've lost the network connection here,
yeah,
and all of the next thing is like, I've DM'd you directly, I have, or I'm going to, please click through to here, which will take them into their CRM system, which will then do that. How is Twitter going to benefit from that when a lot of the things is taking them outside of away from Twitter and into a third-party system which can handle, as you said, like the blended sort of things kind of coming into it?
What was your name? Sorry, I'm trying to get as many people's names that are asking questions. Adam. Again, that's a really good question, in that they've got that problem of where Facebook is now the biggest walled garden, where they're trying to stop you leave. As you said, when you start introducing customer service that you're directing people back to websites, then there's a trade-off to make. So because social media for customer service is still very, very low, I think they probably won't address that issue until more and more businesses get to the point where they are using it and they start listening, do some social listening for their brand or for their business across social media channels. So it'll be interesting to see, if they do hit their objectives of getting X amount of people to use Twitter for customer service, how that will go against their whole idea of keeping people on Twitter. Because at the end of the day, they want user attention on Twitter, not driving it externally, because that's where the value is.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I mean, Jack Dorsey actually said Twitter isn't social media. It's a publishing tool, a broadcasting tool. So they don't actually want lots of people to stay on Twitter. They want people to just follow people and see the broadcast and then take you to the wherever you want to go. I mean, I can see if they're going to add character count, they may not have, you're not going to have reams of, tweets to view. It's all going to be in the headline. So you're just going to click the headline and then see the rest. So it'll still always be, X number of characters is going to get your intro.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. So by increasing the character count, again, they're trying to get more people to write, like their blog posts, for example. Instead of linking them back to their own blog, they're going to want to start getting people to publish directly on Twitter, which is like what Facebook's doing with Facebook Notes. And so, again, they're just all trying to build a walled garden to keep people in, because that's the more people in that you have, the more valuable the network is to businesses, the more advertising revenue you get, and the happier the shareholders are, and the share price increases. So I think there's a big decision in going public as a company like that, because that brings in a whole nother level of people that aren't necessarily in line with what the user wants. And so, to me, I think quite a lot of social networks, like Snapchat, for example, should stay in private hands so they can really focus on what the user wants and not what Wall Street wants. Any other questions? I think that's it.
Great. Thank you.